So when we use the route component, we supply a path and either a component or a render attribute. In this lecture, I'm going to show you how to create a new route component. We're going to call this ProtectedRoute. This component has the exact same interface as the route component. So it takes a path and either a component or a render function. But this ProtectedRoute is aware of the current user. So if the user is not logged in, it will automatically redirect the user to the login page. So we don't have to repeat this logic for every single route that needs to be protected. All right, now let me revert this back to what it was. Here in the components folder, under common, let's add a new component. We call this ProtectedRoute.jsx. Here we import React on the top and create a functional component called ProtectedRoute. This function takes props. Now here we'll simply return a route component. So similar to what we have here. So wherever we use the ProtectedRoute component, the output of that component will be a standard route component in React Router. So we can simply copy this code from here and paste it in this function. However, we don't want to hard code this path and this logic for returning a movie form. We want this part to be dynamic. So instead of setting the path to this hard-coded value, we can read this from props. So here I'm going to use object destructuring. Let's pick path from our props object and use that as the value of this path attribute. Now here in this render function, we need to know about the current user. We can get this from our auth service. So on the top, let's import auth from. We go 2 levels up. Then in the services folder, pick auth service. And then we'll change this to auth.getCurrentUser. So if this is falsy, we need to redirect the user to the login page. Now here we have used the redirect and route components, so we need to import them on the top. So import route and redirect from React Router DOM. That's good. Otherwise, if the user is logged in, we want to return a component dynamically. So instead of movie form, we need to pick the component attribute from our props object, component, and render that here. However, if we run this code, React is going to complain because React expects components to start with a capital letter. So we cannot have an element like this. To fix this issue, we need to rename this component to component with capital C, and then render that here. Now, as I told you before, when we use the route component, we either supply a component or a render function. So back to our ProtectedRoute component, it is possible that this component is null. So we should also pick the render function from our props object and change our return statement to something like this. If component is truthy, we'll return that. Otherwise, we'll call the render function and give it this props that we receive here. So props. We're almost done. There is just one tiny bit left. So here we're picking path, component, and render properties from the props object. As you know, it is possible that this object might have other properties. So using the rest operator, we should pick the other properties, call them rest, and also add them to our route component. So using the syntax that you have learned before, we'll simply add any additional properties here. Now we can simplify this code. So instead of setting path to path, we can rely on spreading the rest object. So let's delete line 8 and we are done. Now back to our app component. Here we want to replace this route component with a protected route. So let's change this, protected route. You probably noticed that my auto import plugin imported this component on the top. Here it is. However, it's placed at the end of all import statements. I would prefer to move this up next to other components. Now, back to our protected route. So we set the path, but instead of setting the render function and checking if the user is logged in or not, we simply set the component to movie form. This is exactly what we had before. So let's get rid of this render attribute, save the changes. So now our protected route is aware of the current user. Let's test the application. So currently I'm not logged in. Let's go to movies/new. You see, I automatically got redirected to the login page. Let me log in with this user. Good. Now, as a logged in user, I should be able to create a new movie or edit an existing one. Beautiful.